Welcome to Collingswood Listens. We are here today with a very special guest, psychic medium, Kym Durham. Hi, Kym.
Hi.
Thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me, Grace. I,
Oh,
I, I look forward to
well,
this.
we're just so excited. I can't wait to just jump right into our chat today and get to
Okay.
learn a little bit more about you.
Okay.
First and foremost, you were selected to be on the cover of Collingswood Living magazine for a variety of reasons. One being that you live in Collingswood. Uh, Tell us a little bit about how you landed in Collingswood and what brought you to this cool town.
Great question. I've been here almost 20 years now. And growing up, my mom had a dear friend who lived in town, and we would come over to her house and go swimming with her kids. And growing up in Woodbury Heights, which was a lovely little hamlet, if you will, but it was a development, and every fourth house looked the same. So coming here and seeing the diversity of architecture and the downtown, things that
Mhm.
I didn't have growing up, I really fell in love with it then. And then when I was looking to purchase a home, I was working full time at the Hospital as an RNFA, and the commute, because I'd be on call for cardiac and orthopedic call, would be an easy commute for me to hop on the bridge and get here quickly. So it was a couple of reasons why. Yeah,
Combination.
combination.
Yeah. It's a neat place and definitely proximity.
hmm
I mean, it's so close to everything.
It is.
It's
It is.
great.
You take the train in town,
Mhm.
check out a show, or even the train up to New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Some of our listeners may already know who you are, but for the ones that don't,
hmm
you also are a very special feature for us because you're a psychic medium. So I would love to learn a little bit more about that and to kind of understand when you realized that you had this gift.
I smile about it because being being a psychic medium is not all that I am, but it's interesting that obviously because of that, a lot of people have interest in what I do. So I'll try and be as brief as possible because there's confusion with it.
Okay.
People have said, "Oh, I went to see a psychic and she talked to my father who passed." That would be mediumship. So psychics are perceive energy, and I can perceive energy on people, places, and then opportunities. Kind of like seeing an iPad behind your shoulder and seeing a scene with dates, names, and people in that scene that I want you to be aware of moving forward in time. I can see energy on people that equates to something over health. Now, they call me a medical intuitive because of this ability. And I would say this because I'm not a doctor, I don't diagnose. That's
Mhm.
not my lane.
Right.
But because of my background with anatomy and physiology, I can see energy on people that equates to something over health. So, real quick, had a woman sit with me, and she was trying to get pregnant. And I said, I see you having to go through IVF. And I see your left ovary tucked behind your uterus, and all the eggs will be taken from your right side. But at the age of 41, you will have a son. 3 years of IVF, no children. She contacted me. She goes, "Should I continue this path?" I said, "Absolutely." This past October, when she went through IVF, yes, her
Mhm.
left ovary was tucked behind. All the eggs came from the right side, and she gave birth to her baby boy this past October.
Wow.
So I can see healing energy on people. So it shows up like an orangey, just an orangey spot. And the first time I saw that, I was 11, cutting through my mom's office, there was a woman sitting there, and she had this orangey hue on the left side of her shoulder and chest. And when I asked my mom about it, she was my first mentor,
Mhm.
Joan Durham. She was a well-known psychic medium as well. She let me know that that was. She smiled and she said that woman had had a mastectomy. She wasn't smiling because of the mastectomy. She was smiling because I could see this energy. And she'd had a mastectomy, that client of hers, 9 months earlier, and I was seeing healing energy.
Wow.
So I can see healing energy on people. I can see energy on a place. So I work in the corporate world, buildings. I can see water damage, electrical problems, soil contamination. And so people use me with this ability about flipping properties, moving companies. Um, and when I work on murder cases and missing persons, I can actually follow the energy trail that missing people leave behind that leads me to where their bodies are. That's one way.
Wow.
So I know it's a lot. It's a lot. So psychics perceive energy. Mediums receive energy. So I'm a conduit. I receive energy from you, a loved one who's crossed, and my energy. It's like a loop of energy. And for me, spirit communication is intelligent. They draw upon my life library, things that I've experienced, places I've gone to. So my background in nursing, they'll bring up medicine and they'll bring up something to do with that. They also talk to me in sign language, which I took up for interpretation while becoming a nurse. So if someone steps forward to communicate from the spiritual world and they tell me they crossed over from Alzheimer's, they'd show it to me in sign.
Wow.
So I can hear them, see them, and feel them. They'll throw out names that link to them. They always appear when they looked damn good. I'm late 30s, fresh from a med spa or vacation, and they can actually put it's kind of like virtual reality goggles on me. So they'll take me to a scene that corresponds to their life. This information is for validation and things that I wouldn't know. Give an example. A woman sat with me recently, and a father came forward and he put on a white apron.
Hmm.
Now, a white apron to me is butcher, baker, pizza maker.
Hmm.
And I described him. He brought me to a building on the corner in this brick building, and he hit the screen door. And then here came a younger man with a lip sweater, uh, just think late 70s, throwing a pizza. Well, her father and her brother had crossed, and they owned a pizza store together.
Wow.
And so I was describing that place. And then I can feel them. So when they come forward, they may make me feel how they crossed. And when I work on murder cases and missing persons, I can see through the victim's eyes. So I can tell them who shot them, from what angle, and what happened to me body-wise.
Amazing. Does it feel like a puzzle that you're putting together when you're getting all of this?
It's a lot. That's a great question. It's a lot. I lovingly say they communicate with me kind of like charades.
Yeah.
They'll show me a picture. They'll make me feel something.
Yeah.
They'll take me someplace. So there's a lot of interpretation on my part. So if I'm not on point, it's usually because of my life library, the way I'm interpreting it.
Interesting.
But that's
Wow.
that's
Fascinating.
kind of like what it's like.
So I know that you're obviously second generation psychic medium,
Mhm.
and I would love to kind of get more information on what it was like to grow up in a home, in your home, as a
Um,
kid.
when I was younger, I didn't know any better. I thought everybody's dad did some form of construction and all moms talked to dead people. I really didn't. But it was wonderful. I mean, my mom started the business in '72,
Okay.
built a home office in 1974. I mean, whose mom had a home office then?
Right.
She traveled over 12 countries as a psychic medium, and she worked on over 240 murder or missing persons cases. So she was always traveling. There was people, in her office. She had a secretary, Marie, who I loved to pieces. She was like a second mom. I lovingly tease my older brother tested my mom's ability quite often. Um, 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 uh, I'll give you an example. He decided to play hooky one day and went fishing with a buddy. And they go fishing, and where they decided to fish, a young man who was having some difficulty, shall we say, emotionally, decided to go into this lake, and my brother had to save this young man's life.
Oh, wow.
So we're at dinner, and my mom takes my brother's wallet. Now, this is called psychometry, and this is one way I work on murder cases or missing persons. I may hold on to their ring and start to see pictures. When I see pictures or a loop of video, and so my mom was doing psychometry on my brother's wallet. And she turned to my brother at dinner and she said, "Who's Lance?" And my brother almost fell out of the chair. And why did you get all wet? What happened at the lake? And here my brother had to fess up that he played hooky and went fishing and had to save somebody from drowning.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Must be hard to have a psychic as a mom.
You don't get away with much.
Right.
And my daughter has said that to me. And I was like, listen, I had three brothers on the couch that were, along with a mother who was a psychic medium.
I can't imagine.
No, it was really fun.
Okay.
Looking back on it, my mom had a great sense of humor, and was just really great with it. But it was obviously unique, and
Right.
I didn't realize it at the time.
Did you ever think that you were going to grow up to do this work as a kid?
My mom was so well known and just remarkable. I mean, the things that she saw 10, 15, 20 years in advance.
So you looked up to her.
Well, I looked up to her, but it was also intimidating. I always had a draw for anatomy and physiology,
Mhm.
and I toyed with going to med school. I had to make a decision about which direction to go, and I went into nursing. I always felt pulled to it, and working in the operating room and being an
Mhm.
assist, I loved. I believe me being a nurse has made me a better medium. I can compartmentalize those that people who are grieving or death, and I lovingly say, I've been lucky. I've been lucky enough to hold the hand of someone taking their first breath or their last.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Mm.
Tell me a little bit about how I mean, obviously, all the existential questions are the big questions everybody wants me to ask. But, a little bit more diving into that as far as, taking a last breath
hmm
and higher power and God. And can you speak to any of that? What your thoughts are on kind of God?
I don't think one religion has a quarter market on it.
Mhm.
There's Yahweh, there's God, there's Adonai, they say, there's Allah. So whoever you pray to, that higher being, I believe, yes, there is divine intervention, whatever you call that.
Do you yourself feel a God?
Do I feel a God? I feel a higher power.
Okay.
And it's not, uh, I don't fight against a religion. I was brought up very much in with a respect of many religions. So my mom was, raised Catholic. I was up until the age of 18 when we could kind of make our own decision and if we wanted to sleep in on Sundays. But and uh, and I've just dealt with so many different religions, both with my client base and in my work. And religion is beautiful, and it fills that emotional need, that spiritual need that we have.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so I do believe in it, but I can't say for certain that if I call it God, it's God. But if you call it Allah, then it's Allah.
Okay. Fair enough. So tell me about when there was a turning point for you when you realized, okay, I have a gift. I need to be in practice with it.
Well, at the age of 4, I started to see those that had crossed over, and I was describing the same people in my bedroom that my mom had communicated with down at her office below.
Wow.
At the age of 9, I started to see things that would happen in forward time. And now in physics, we have string theory, and we talk about this ability, which is interesting. I'm a bit of a science geek, but anyway, I digress. So I started to, I was driving in the car with my dad, and I saw a dog run out in front of the car. He slammed on the brakes. He got out, no damn dog, and gets back in the car. And then about a half an hour later, we had a dog run out in front of us. And he teased, "Oh God, I got Tui in the house like this or something like." So at a young age, these things started to happen to me, and my mom made sense of it without throwing holy water and dragging me off to church. And
Right.
I say that lovingly. And I worked with her. I mean, at the age of 14, my mom was had a column called "Ask the Experts" in the Courier Post, and so I was very much her secretary. She would pull me out of school for take your daughter to work days before there was ever a
Right.
holiday. And so at this time, I'm 14. I'm there to put people on hold so we can then put them on speaker and someone can transcribe the psychic questions that they were asking. And my mom said, "Kimmy, tell them what you see. Tell them what you see."
So fascinating. I have to ask, do
Hmm.
your siblings have the gift too?
Well, I look at it as an ability. I appreciate that.
Okay.
But I look at it as an ability. If, some people have aptitudes in different things.
Mhm.
And I'm just lucky enough to have been blessed with this ability, a mother who encouraged it and the opportunity to expand upon it. So, yes, all 3 of my siblings have the ability.
Wow.
My 2 younger brothers are quite. My middle brother is outstanding, and my youngest brother quite remarkable as well.
I want to come to Thanksgiving at your house.
It's fun.
I would
It
imagine.
is a fun time.
Are they both they are not working in the field though?
They aren't. They aren't. I'll give you an example. It's called telepathy, right? When you start to think of somebody. So my brother will start to think of me and say, "Hey, Kimmy, give me a call," and I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll call him.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's just one fun way, and then there's a great story that I can tell you about growing up. Go ahead.
Well, I just got me
Yeah.
thinking, is that like that happens in life
Mhm.
too? And
Sure.
like people don't realize it.
Yeah.
Like I was just thinking about you.
Yes.
And that's what you called. Like
Yeah.
others are experiencing it. They're just
That
not as tapped into it.
Right,
But that's what
exactly,
it is.
exactly.
Wow.
So there's a great story growing up with my mom, that, she had this ability. It's how can I explain it? It's you could put something in a box, and I can see in the box without touching the box, okay? I know. It's a way that we work to heighten our sensitivities for working on a case. And so my 2 younger brothers came up with this great idea because, it's a form of psychometry. And so my brothers came up with this great idea for Christmas that they were going to wrap up my mother's Christmas gift inside the box in tinfoil to block her superpowers.
Oh, does that actually work?
Not at all. But it makes for a great story of when my brothers were 6 and 8 and trying to surprise my mom with a Christmas gift
That's
and
hilarious.
wrapped it up in tinfoil.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
So for some of our listeners right now, describing kind of the difference between the psychic and the medium.
Mhm. So people will sit with me and ask me about. I'll give an example. What I did yesterday. I had 30% of my business is men, which a lot of people are shocked at.
Mm.
But I worked with a gentleman this week, and his wife had talked about me, and he was intrigued. And so I do this by Zoom. So I have clients all over the world I can do this with. So, and I'm sitting in front of him, and I started to describe his business, and I said, "Oh, I'm so glad you got rid of Steve." And Steve was his former boss and was a bit of a nightmare. And so then I went on to tell him things. And I can start to see these pictures in my head. And I started to describe the new location where he will sign a lease and start this new business.
Wow.
And so people use me for hiring and firing of staff, buying of businesses. I had the opportunity to help a client buy a $4 million apartment in Manhattan based upon the energy I was seeing in the building and the location for her. Yeah.
So interesting.
To be a fly on my wall.
Now, tell me, when you're in your daily life,
Mhm.
you're at the store,
Mm.
are you feeling like you've got to tell people things?
You know, I know how important as a nurse, when people sit with me, they talk about feeling light after they sit with me, that there's a type of healing of the heart, if you will. And the nurse inside of me is, I think it's a bit of I vacillate about doing that. Meaning, and not to sound, but if I had a contract and I had a camera crew, could I do it with people walking down the street? Yes. But this is energy.
Right.
And I'm a battery. So I've got to feed my battery with downtime. And I've got to honor the people that wait a wee bit of time to see
Right.
me. And I feel like that would be a disservice but I've had situations where I've been out. Oh geez, people are smiling here because they've seen me work out. A quick little story, Home Depot.
Okay.
I go to return a light bulb, and my assistant is with me, and I don't have my glasses, and she goes, "Oh, I know where it is." So she goes to get the light bulb, and I'm standing in front, and the woman has an orange, and her name's Colleen, and all of a sudden I see a man standing next to her, and he showed me a cupcake and a candle. Now this is help in sign language, but I'm visual, and I could see his name was James, and he said, "Tell my daughter thank you for singing happy birthday to me." So I turned to the woman. I said, have you ever seen Teresa Caputo? It's a good jumping off point. She goes, "Yes." I said, "Well, I'm a medium and there's somebody here. Can I give you a message?" I would love it. And so Dad came forward with the cupcake and I said, "He's singing happy birthday. His birthday was yesterday?" She says, "Oh my God, yes." I said, "Well, he's here. And did you light a candle for him?" She goes, "Yes, I sang happy birthday to him." And then her mother came forward and she was doing the Mummer Strut. And Mom came forward. Well, Mom was a huge Mummers fan and would go every year. And so now 2 angels, and that's what I call them, come forward. And now my assistant comes back and she sees me doing the Mummer Strut in front of the returns at Home Depot. And she's like, "What? I can't leave you for a few minutes." But
So funny.
that kind of stuff happens.
So after that, did the woman say, like, "I need to get your information and call you later"? Like, because I would just be like, fall out of my chair if that happened.
Well, she Yeah, she did ask for it. It was just my, when your angels are that insistent,
Mhm.
and I was just standing there, so I guess I had some free time. But yeah, so I struggle with that because
Mhm.
I know people desperately want to hear from people.
Right.
Excuse me, and I worked with all kinds of grief groups. I work with parents whose children have crossed.
Mhm.
I also work with seniors who have lost partners. For me, closure, I can't guarantee. First off, I never know who's on the spiritual plane to communicate, and I say that not as a fail safe, but truly, when people sit with me, I've had first loves show up. I've had neighbors show up. I had a group of oncology nurses. First, shout out to anybody who does nursing or healthcare. But they were from Cooper. They were oncology nurses, and they sat with me, and two of their patients came through.
Wow.
So closure to me is up to the individual. I believe the people that go through grief therapy
Mhm.
are light years um, above or from their grief. Grief therapy isn't to get over it or through it. I often say it's how you learn to live with that cinder block in your backpack.
Sure.
So I can't guarantee closure, but a lot of people have said when they've sat with me, there's a lightness. There's some answers may be some questions may be answered. So I would hope that for everybody, but it's not something I
Right.
can guarantee.
Right. Do you feel like your relationship with death is very different than the average bear, just being who you are?
Kind of.
But are you scared? Do you have any fear around your own death?
No. Well, there's. I have a list. You want to call it a bucket? Like there's stuff I want to do.
Yeah.
So
But do you feel it'll be easier for you to cross over the
Well,
bridge, the rainbow bridge?
since I know well, that's funny you bring that up because I can actually see animals that have crossed,
Wow.
and I've done fundraisers for local shelters. Communicate. I often see animals with my clients.
So, Kim, I have $1 million question for you.
Mm,
I'm very interested in learning more about your relationship with death, and ultimately, we all have to take our last breath. When that time comes for you, do you feel like you're more at peace with that because of who you are in your line of work?
yes, I don't know all that there is on the other side. I get to quite literally breach a doorway every once in a while. Is the best way I can describe it. I have been with people who have taken their last breath. Um, actually, I'm going to bring up my business card because it's a visual. I had this created to capture what I saw. Uh, it was a woman known as Aunt Edna. She was my grandmother's best friend. She had no children. Just picture lime green shoes, lime green sunglasses, and a purse. She smoked cigarettes occasionally, drank cheap Italian wine, and would tell me dirty jokes.
Okay. Sounds like a good time.
And I got to take care of her in her last years. And when I was there when she was taking her last breath, and about 30 seconds after she took her last breath, I saw a ball of energy come from her solar plex right around her belly button.
Mhm.
Now, I was tired. I had worked long hours at Penn Presby and rushed down there after work. But I saw this like ball of energy. It's the best way I can form right about 2 feet above her stomach. And I'm sitting there going, "Am I really seeing what I'm seeing?" And my mom and I were there.
Wow.
And this energy lifted up and then took off into the corner of the room. And I was just like, do I say something? Am I tired? Am I seeing this? I go, Mom, did you see that? She goes, "Isn't that fantastic?" I go, "What?" The energy from her solar plex. We saw the soul leave the body. And so, in honor of Aunt Edna and all the souls that I get to talk with, I had an artist capture what that was like. That on this, you can see the energy come into a ball, it takes off, and they earn their wings.
Wow.
And so that's what that symbolizes on my
It's
cards.
amazing.
Um,
Is
yeah,
it so real that it's scary ever?
no, is it so real? It's scary. Um, I actually was brought into an ICU to speak to somebody who was in the process of dying. And she could telepathize with me and tell me I drew her pictures of her home in both California and Hawaii. So a client of mine brought me to be able to help, I don't want to say her crossover,
Mhm.
but to help the family understand what was going on. And here I was, uh, and I'm smiling for the sheer fact that it was the ICU I swore I'd never step foot in. It was the last place I did my clinical in. Couldn't wait to get out of that place. And so never say never, because there I was a couple of years later as a medium communicating with a woman who was in the midst of dying and was unable to verbalize. And I knew she was going to die on Valentine's Day. I knew about her house. She brought forth other people that were there. So I call it a transition team. You never
Mhm.
cross alone, whether, you cross quickly and unexpectedly, or you put up a hell of a battle and then earn your wings. And so I could see the transition team in the room there to help her cross over.
Standing there in the
Yes.
room,
Hmm.
looking like people.
Yep. Yep.
Can you tell, like, that it's just like you're looking at me? Like, is there a difference how
There's
that
a
looks?
there's varying forms of it. So have you ever seen an orb, a round circle of energy, like on a baby monitor? And you
Mhm.
see it going east to west, not top to bottom, because dust falls that way. But so, just like Albert Einstein says, energy can't be destroyed; it's only changed in its form. I communicate with that different form of energy, and that energy comes in different forms. I'll see it as an orb. I may see it as you sitting there. Um, it ranges.
Do you ever get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and you're like, "Oh, somebody's in the hallway."
Well, I have had experiences in my own home. Um, but I can't say I've bumped into anybody in the middle of
That
the
would
night.
be scary.
Well, I look at it this way. If they're there, if they're loved ones and they're overlooking me and maybe helping guide me, maybe putting their foot in the door of opportunity for me, in some, then to me it's comforting.
Right.
I don't use fear because that's energy, and I don't want to give something energy that's not positive.
Is there such thing as an evil spirit?
There is energy that is not positive. I mean, have I come across it? Yes. Um, do I try to do that? No. Um, but I've come across very disgruntled, low energy forms of people who have crossed, and I'll put it that way.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had a situation where I was working with someone, and someone came from the other side, very much up to my face, and was trying to intimidate me. And I was like, "Listen, the only person I was ever afraid of here and there is my mom, Joan, and so that's not going to work." Yeah.
Interesting. So it's just like being in the world here. Like
Mhm.
you've got people that are
Angry, annoyed.
Yep.
You get happy people. The energy on the other side, their personality comes forward, and I tease. I tend to have. I tend to angels that have crooked halos and ruffled feathers. Tend to. Those are my people that come forward. But the sense of humor comes forward. I can when I do events. I do gallery style event, evidential mediumship. I take on their personality. I can walk like them, talk like them. That's a high level of
it's
mediumship.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, but as far as a soul and a
Yeah.
personality, I always thought those were separate entities. But you're saying that that's not the case.
The soul continues on.
Right.
And however that soul forms or appears to me, within that soul, I could see nuances of the person's likeness that was here on the physical plane, their personality that was here on the physical plane, what they did for a living. Um, um, yeah.
Do you believe that people are reborn?
Do I believe people are reborn? Again, that comes down to religion. And if that's something in your lane that brings you joy, that fulfills you, fabulous. I have no right to tell you how to seek worship,
Right.
and they have no right to tell me how to live my life.
Right.
As long as we respect each other, I'm
Sure.
fine.
Tell me a little bit about if anyone listening today is interested in seeking a medium, a psychic medium,
Okay.
what to look for.
Yeah, great question. I look at it this way. I treat this profession very much like I did my nursing. I get my CEUs, my continuing
Mhm.
education. So I spent many years before I ever put a shingle out to do this, studying with James Van Praagh, John Holland, Janet Nahavik, former Catholic nun, has a spiritual center in Pompton Lakes,
Wow.
and she has mediums from all over the world. There's an Arthur Findlay College that actually people can study and develop their mediumship
Is
abilities.
this a four-year university?
Yes.
Wow.
So, they're much more progressive over the pond than we are here. And so, find out where they've studied, who they've studied with. Are they teaching? What is their reputation? Obviously, I just, if they got a certificate in the mail, and I'm not, but there's more to it. And have they taken an ethics class? I think that's tremendously important as well.
Interesting. Good to
Mhm.
know. Tell me a little bit about when you're doing a reading or you're picking up energies, the process that you go through.
Okay, so I meditate every day. Well, definitely when I'm working, and I liken that to turning up the light bulb. I go from 60 watt to a 240. So I meditate, um, and I just get myself ready to work, set my office up. Um, and once I meditate, let's say if I bring somebody into the office, I'll sit with them, kind of like you and I,
Mhm.
for 5 minutes or so, tell them a little bit about me, give them a chance to catch their breath, get used to the environment. And usually by then, somebody on the other side is talking to me, but I would do them a disservice if I start to work with them. Then I bring them over to my desk and I have paper that I tend to see things very visually.
Mhm.
So I'll draw kind of like this. Um, and I tend to write in medical shorthand. So I'll have a symbol at the end of the paperwork and I'll start to draw on it. And so I take them on a quick little meditation to get them ready once we're at the desk to work. And then I'll start to tell them things. And I love, I tease, I like to fish. I do love to fish. I know it's a little FYI about me, but I love to fish, but not in the office. And so all you need to do is tell me yes, no, I don't know. And when I start to sense someone coming forward, I'll start to draw either what they look like, tell you how they're coming forward, a name, what they did, how they crossed. And 9 times out of 10, they know that person. If they don't, but I've had people come forward that they never met on the physical plane,
Wow.
and they're part of their spiritual posse, is what I'm saying. Like I had a woman this week that her grandmother came through, she never met, but she showed me a birth certificate and middle name, and with a G. And yes, they shared the same middle name.
Wow.
And then that grandmother, see those that have had their wings, I lovingly say, the longest,
Mhm.
are usually the ones that come forward first. A recent crossing to me is 2 years or less, and brand spanking new wings is 6 months. So I tease that the newbies with their wings they come, they're not as good as chatting sometimes as those that have had their wings longer.
Why
It
do you think
depends.
that is?
I think it depends on where that person is on the grief journey. I never want somebody to sit with me prior to 6 months of a loss. You're just too clouded by that energy of grief. And I lovingly tease. I have brothers in the construction field, and
Mhm.
I'm not the one that can break down walls. So, but I've had other angels. Like it depends. If it's a direct connection, then it's obviously going to hurt and deeper. But if it was a cousins who someone crossed quickly, unexpectedly, or something, they're
Right.
like, "Oh yeah, that's my cousin," and it may have happened 2 weeks ago, but because they're not impacted from that grief as deeply, they're easier to communicate with. Does that make sense? Kinda?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Hmm.
So, when you talk about intuition, because
Mhm.
yours is just, from what I understand, is just really turned up loud than the rest of us, but we all have some of it in us, correct?
Absolutely.
And how, like, could you give me advice if I wanted to tap more into that, or how can I try to build that muscle? so to
That's a
speak?
great idea. Well, I actually teach classes on this. I work with women in business, tapping into your gut feeling. There's, the Virgin, Richard Branson,
Mhm.
Oprah, Steve Jobs, all of them are highly intuitive and follow their gut on decisions. So when I talk about teaching people, gut feeling, women's intuition, there's 7 portals on the energy of a body, and this goes into Western medicine or just a Western belief. It's called chakras, and each of these chakras have a portal of energy. And the chakra in the middle of in your stomach is yellow, and it's the psychic center, and it's the one that you tap into for your intuition. So, meditation, opening up chakras is a way to do that, but I'll spare us all of that because it's a bit of a class. I just tell people to sit with a decision and actually feel how it feels here. Just sit with the decision.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of one right now. And
Mhm.
how does it feel? If you start to vacillate, or if there's actually physical upsetment, some people get, I know I do.
I do too.
Okay, see, then I would say that you're highly intuitive and that you need to tap in and actually respect that. But once I make that decision, it's done.
Yeah,
It's done. Like, next.
I'm the same way.
Right. But and so the only time I've had trouble is when I've vacillated or the second child inside of me is trying to please everyone. And then that's usually a problem. So if I listen to my intuition and follow it, and 9 times out of 10, it's far easier for me. It's a better outcome.
Right. Interesting. Tell us a little bit about how spirit intervenes to save us from bad things happening.
Well, as soon as you say that, I'm picturing, somebody with a cape and a cape with an angel's like Superman on their front coming to. But truly, what it's like for me is those on the other side will tell me things to make sure to give either opportunity for those on the physical world or a heads up about something. Uh, Examples of that would be, um, on the simplest level, somebody going skiing, and and I'm being shown that that person, the tall guy, is going to have a physical problem. I'm being told that from somebody who's crossed, a female. So if somebody sits with me, and a grandmother comes forward and is telling me, listen, I see these 2 men, and she may give me a name. It's like a film she's showing me.
Mhm.
And I want the tall guy to be really careful because he's going to end up in the hospital. So I'm not saying don't go skiing,
Be careful.
but be careful. Well, this tall guy who went skiing ended up in the hospital the day after because he had a stomach issue. And so she was trying to tell me to be careful of his health, be aware of his health,
Wow.
that there's a problem there.
Wow.
So in that respect, that's how they communicate with me to tell people a heads up.
Interesting. How can the rest of the world really lean into trusting signs and looking for signs from loved ones?
For me, if it speaks to your heart, then you don't need me to validate it. It truly. But I had a mom sit with me recently, and it's tough. For parents whose children have crossed, I'm honored that they sit with me.
Yeah.
I worked with a Catholic priest who actually would hide me into the church basement, bring me into the church basement to speak to his parents whose children had crossed.
Oh my
I know
goodness.
that's a big no-no, but hey, I lovingly tease. I inherited this ability from my mom, many things, lovely jewelry, and a Catholic priest because my mother had worked with him as well. And so I have lots of stories from those parents. And one such story is a woman whose son had crossed quickly, unexpectedly, handsome son of a guy, athletic, just a delight. And he kept when mom was sitting with me, I described him, I knew how he crossed, and I had said, he keeps saying, "The hearts are me, mom. The hearts are me." And he put down a Starbucks coffee. And she just about lost it. She said, "Do you know every time I make coffee or I get coffee at a diner and there's a heart in the coffee, like like, and she says, and she showed me 3 pictures on her phone.
Wow.
And I was like, and so that obviously that resonated. And he could show me that from the other side. But, if it speaks to your heart, then it's them.
But being open to seeing the
Sure. I
signs.
mean, I don't want to sit here and go, hey, hypervigilance.
Right.
But like I have, how they say pennies from heaven? I have a collection in my office, and it has, a client had given it to me. It's got wings on it and a heart. And in that little case, I have pennies and dimes that were not in the office before people showed up and now are on the floor.
Wow.
And I'm just like, and I have feathers as well. And I'll sometimes snap it and put it up on my, my social media. But I just sit there and I go, how wonderful is that?
Wow.
Uh-huh.
So tell me about how you take care of yourself, because this must be just absolutely exhausting. I feel like I have a tough job. I'm out and I'm using a lot of energy talking to, I talk to every Tom,
talk a
Dick,
lot.
and Harry on the street.
a lot.
But I imagine for you, it's even, more draining. So what do you do to take care of Kym?
Probably not enough. And I say that I'm learning to do that more so. The simplest things would be, I tell people to fill their joy tank.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, what is that? I'm lucky that I love what my partner does for a living. And so sitting there watching Rowan softball is just joy to
Relaxing.
me.
Yeah.
Although the parents want to know if I know the score and if we're going to win.
And do you?
Listen, I'm not. I just turn to them and say, I am not in
Here
the
for
office.
that.
I am not in the office. This is not. So that brings me joy. Seeing my daughter succeed and just grow, as we had shared about our kids. I play guitar badly, and so hanging out with a couple of people in Guitar Center and going to that special room where there's the very expensive guitars, not to be bougie, but and to talk about guitars and talk about music. That brings me joy. Hiking, I love to do.
Nature.
And now that Santa brought a new wheel, I can do more of that. So yeah.
Thank you, Santa.
Thank you, Santa. Yeah. So it's taking time. If anything that working in this realm has taught me, appreciate these little moments, like being with you all today.
Mm-hmm.
This fills my joy tank. This is, how wonderful is this?
Yeah.
Like we get to do this. How blessed are we?
Right.
And so if you just take a moment to appreciate and be present, that's what,
Be grateful.
be grateful.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been such a fun experience getting to chat with you today. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on our show and also for being our feature in Collingswood Living.
My pleasure.
And for all those listening, stay tuned and read your Collingswood Living that's going to be coming out next in your mailboxes.
I look forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kym.
You're welcome.